Hello and welcome to the Crate and Crowbar podcast. It's episode 109. It's September the 8th. I'm Graham Smith and I'm joined by three lovely men, including...
Chris Thurston was drinking when you said that.
Tom Francis.
And...
John Roberts.
Special guest.
Famed indie artist.
That's what your Twitter bio says. Special guest. Famed.
What do you do, John?
Stuff with the Wacom. Obviously. I do 2D and 3D things on a sort of freelance basis, but mostly, as it turns out, for Tom Francis.
These days, yeah. You were also the lead artist on Elite Dangerous?
Yeah, I can get away with saying that. At the time, there was three of us on it.
So it's alright.
Yeah, there was me, a concept guy, and a coder for a large amount of pre-production and prototyping and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And then you did Gunpoint's art, and now you're doing heat signatures art.
Yes.
You're quite accomplished. You should be on a better podcast.
You've achieved things. What's it like being back on spaceships after a foray into coats?
It's pretty good.
Well put.
It's actually quite fun because you find all your reference and your research and your concept when you're on the first space thing, and then you burn yourself out. And then you come back to it in a couple of years, it's like, oh, I remember this. I really want to do cool things with trails and explosions and flying inside big rocks in space.
Absolutely. Space is cool. I'm not sure if that's a thing people know, but that's true.
We have been playing a game that's not set in space. I have no good segue from that conversation in order to talk about Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, which is the only thing I think me, you, Chris, and you, Tom, have been playing.
Yep. As I think we've been playing, we did have some news, though.
Did we?
Yeah.
Did we decide that we had news?
Yes.
What was the
We
news?
decided this literally 2 minutes ago.
I thought we decided there was no news.
No, we...
Ubiland!
That just happened.
start as we mean to go on.
Yes. Ubisoft are making a Malaysian theme park.
To be fair, that would have been an equally hard segue from asteroid-based space station art.
Yes,
it would. Ubisoft have never made a space game, have they?
Well, probably they've published one.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that seems like a stupid idea, doesn't it, Chris?
It does. So, to fill in the details, which I only just found out 2 minutes ago when we agreed that this was going to be the news, Ubisoft are making a 10,000 square metre indoor park in Kuala Lumpur with rides, shows and more based on games and characters from the Ubisoft catalogue. And I have questions about... I mean, I actually think it's brilliant that they're making it, because all of their games are theme parks. Right? Like, every game they make now, they have a template, and that template is stuff to do in various areas around a big map. With, you know...
You go to each new section of the park, you have to climb on the top of a radio tower.
Yeah, you synchronize and you see your
pamphlet with where all the things are in that area.
They also have really fairground-like challenges of, like, go to this activation point and then shoot the 10 creatures in this time limit, or fly this thing through these hoops.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you'll be flying things through hoops.
Going to the petting zoo, killing and skinning the animals, make bags out of them.
Having a horrific drug experience on the merry-go-round or whatever.
I hope that the ticket kiosk where they check your admission and charge your money is staffed by about 5 or 6 guards who are on regular patrol routes, and there's like several of them evenly spaced throughout the park. And the challenge is to get past them and take them all out silently.
Yeah, there does need to be a Clancy zone. It's too easy for them to just make it like the Rayman and Far Cry experience, as tonally divergent as that would be. Where it'd be like, you don't have any arms and legs and you've got malaria. But, like, yeah, no, I want the modern military conspiracy thriller zone. Where, I don't know, you just walk through command centres of people using acronyms you don't understand, and there's a lot of men in leather. I don't know what they would comprise. It was interesting. I read something recently on Wired, I think, about how Disneyland redesigned itself with these bracelets that track user, and it was this sort of like vision of the future thing where Disneyland, if you go to a Disneyland America now, they issue you with a digital bracelet that has like a GPS and a sensor and a bunch of different things in it that acts as your ticket, but also like as a kind of magic queuing mechanism. So it does everything from like tracking visitors within the park, which does sound like a Jurassic Park plot device, but but also like if you book at a restaurant in advance and you have the time to get there and you've already planned your order, but then the restaurant knows exactly where you are and when you're going to arrive, so you never queue, and you kind of, the idea is you kind of slip seamlessly from one activity to another as the park kind of like, like a game instances things for you based on this magic wristband. So I don't think it's completely out of the question for a game developer to then break into making a real world theme park. But why is it in Malaysia?
We got lots of PC gamers out in Malaysia. There used to be a PC gamer licensee out there.
Yeah, but Ubisoft not known for being the most PC.
Well, I don't know.
Do they have an office there?
I think they do. I think there is a studio in Malaysia.
Probably. There is definitely one in Singapore and definitely one in Shanghai. But those are different countries in the same part of the world. Many thousands of miles away.
It also, I mean, do we feel like Ubisoft's brands particularly lend themselves to theme parks? Theme parks I would think of as being a family experience, and I'm not sure that
it's Rayman, basically. It's just
brooding men with wrist blades necessarily where you want to take your kids, and if it's just pitched at, well, teenagers, then I don't know.
It's whether anyone's also a fan of Ubisoft, right? Or whether they like Splinter Cell and Rainbow Six, and someone else likes Assassin's Creed and somebody else likes Rayman. Like, is anybody rooting for the company? And if so, I imagine they have like a big Just Dance presence, but is that next to Clancy Zone?
I think Just Dance was
Clancy Zone and the Clancy Zone.
We just sat in the RPS chat room this morning for like an hour making jokes about this thing. It's so easy to take the piss out of Ubisoft. It's the part of the park, which is the Beyond Good and Evil park, and it's just permanently under construction.
Yeah, the Assassin's Creed thing, 'cause it kind of has to be there because it's such a big deal for them. But like, how do you build a theme park around like historical murderers? Like,
you go to the Victorian London zone and a small group of people circle around you and everyone else pretends they can't see you.
Exactly.
They just they have to pay like the staff of thousands of volunteers just to mill around in crowds and pretend not to notice.
Convincingly bumping into scenery, sometimes their faces come off. They're just a wig floating around.
Or they hire an actor to be an assassin and stalk on the actual crowds of real people who are there, and if he gets you without you spotting him, he stabs you with a fake blade that dyes you with paint or something, and then you've been assassinated and you win a prize.
And you ruined your shirt.
Yeah.
I assume they'll have a merchandise booth, so there'll be thousands of teenagers running around with sword canes and top hats.
Yeah. I guess you could do the eras of Assassin's Creed and have each game of the series has a different section.
Pirate zone.
They recreate the architecture of the time and stuff.
I guess, when I think of theme parks, I immediately think of Disneyland, but it's probably the completely wrong reference point. Probably the Universal Studios tour is the more likely comparison. Because no one roots for Universal Studios, and they make incredibly disparate properties. And they don't really do rides in the sense of roller coasters and spinny things in the way that Disney do, but you walk through architectural spaces that then are designed to collapse while actors fall about as if a disaster is happening around you. And you could totally do that where you walk through a recreation of Victorian London and, as you say, Assassin Man leaps about rooftops above you and jumps into hay bales from great heights and stuff like that.
People find out tragically that doesn't work.
Man, if they can actually make that work, they'll let you jump off as the thing, a sheer drop and have an airbag that's disguised like a hay bale. The airbag with just 5 bits of hay on top.
I just feel like the Universal Studios was a good comparison, but even though no one roots for Universal, those individual films are huge. You're talking about with Jurassic Park and Jaws and whatever else they have.
And Jurassic Park is a theme park already.
Yeah, exactly. So it's double theme park, so it's extra good. But Assassin's Creed is big, yeah. But does it have the same draw? I don't know.
I guess some people think that it must because they're turning it into a film at the moment, aren't they?
With Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
It looks really out of place in cosplay.
Yep.
A picture of him wearing a hemp assassin's costume.
Yeah, so I guess they're gunning for mainstream acceptance, and maybe those games just are really huge in that part of Asia.
Yeah, I do not know. If you do know, that'd be interesting to find out, actually, if Assassin's Creed was a big cultural thing that people enjoyed in Southeast Asia, that would be total news to me, because I associate it with just grim, annualized smudge at this point. Speaking of thankfully not annualized because it took fucking ages to make, open world non-smush.
We've been to Kojima Land.
I love Kojima Land and I never want to leave.
I love it too. And it's actually, despite calling it Kojima Land just now for a lark, it's not as Kojima-ish as I was expecting.
It kind of is, but it isn't. And actually, we will probably almost have a discussion about this. And I know, John, I know you've played Metal Gear Solid, yeah.
First one when it came out.
Yeah, so the same boat I was going into this. And I actually found myself quite appreciating the Kojima-iness of it. I think probably in contrary to the discussion that was had on the last episode of the podcast about the intro, I like the bit where it gets a bit weird. I don't know.
I would like slightly more Kojima-ishness from it, actually.
What?
Like, I didn't mind the intro, it was fine, and I liked that it got weird. But then I've played maybe another 15 hours since then, and done about 12 story missions and 8 or 9 kind of side ops stuff. And in that time, there was one cutscene after about 6 missions, which was a bit shit and obtrusive because it came at the end of a mission and kind of tacked on a scripted, crappy ending for what had otherwise been a cool infiltration mission.
What you mean.
But then, other than that, there's just next to nothing. Like, you go back to Mother Base, and occasionally, sometimes, there is like a little 30-second or 60-second conversation with Revolver Ocelot when you first arrive, but then he vanishes. There's no... I was expecting it to be more almost Mass Effect-y.
Yeah.
Like, Mother Base was your Normandy. I expected that Revolver Ocelot would be in a room somewhere on Mother Base, and then I could go and talk to him, and that would trigger... Maybe that would be the trigger for the side-ups. But otherwise, it's not. It's you never do anything like that. You're just getting radio calls from people.
You just press the button on your binoculars to make him explain things that you should really understand.
Yeah.
As a legend of the battlefield.
And also,
What's this? It's a tree.
whether you do that or not, every time you pick a carrot, ever, he'll
Yeah.
explain the history of the carrot.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. There's the thing that is very Kojima Land, which is like if Kojima Land was a real theme park, you would have to walk around with like a Wikipedia tablet at all times, because there's a dimension to those games which is like facts Kojima has recently found,
Yes.
which is like, this is actually an ancestor to the modern carrot. Like, thanks, Ocelot.
Some of them, it's like you pick tarragon, and you are kind of thinking, why the fuck am I picking tarragon? And he explains that it's a ingredient in some other drug, which you also don't know what that is.
It contains trace amounts of diazepam, which I
Yeah.
didn't know.
I didn't know what that was either, but apparently it steadies your hand if you're...
It does, because it's a thing in Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So,
that word in the first game.
that one,
That's
he
how I know what
connects...
the diazepam was.
I know what tarragon is, but he connects it to why, well, vaguely tries to connect it to why you need it. With the carrot, it just says, it's something of an ancestor to the modern carrot, and also wild animals love it. That's it. Why am I picking it? What is this?
That becomes apparent later when you open a zoo.
Ah, zoo, I see.
I've got the zoo now. The explanation for the zoo is the best, where it's like, you're extracting animals for an NGO. Like, the more humanitarian things you do are often explained as like, there's an NGO that's paying us to do this stuff on the side. And they're like, that NGO doesn't have the time to rehouse all these animals, so they've paid for a construction of a new wing of Mother Base. And it's just the zoo zone. Like, go there if you like, and pick plants and befriend bears.
Where can we put all these animals? I know, that like, PMC,
exactly.
who murder people for...
The multi-purpose PMC that's supposed to be operating through multiple different front organisations, but actually, like, no.
I just want to see the meeting where they thought to ask that, and then, like, the Diamond Dogs representative said, yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah, sure.
that makes sense.
We're building the combat development platform. We can throw in an extra oil rig full of bears. Like, that's no problem.
I've seen taking a shower kind of resets your aim as you like refresh and
Yeah.
get ready to head back out. Is there any kind of buff associated with the zoo?
Can't tell that you can harvest plants there. So if you're running out of black carrots,
But that's why I was getting the black carrots.
The zoo is a great place to go stock up on plants, because as you walk around your base, one of the things your soldiers love to say is, "So we need more medicinal herbs," and then you choke slam them, and they go, "Thank you."
I hope you can learn CQC manoeuvres from bears and wolves and that kind of thing.
You already know all of CQC when you
Now
get
I know
there.
how to
Although-
slash.
Yeah, there's actually there's a really nice sort of one thing I maybe to move on to like more legitimate praise. Actually, I fucking love the Kojima of it, but is the control system. While kind of I found this with Ground Zeroes as well, but Ground Zeroes had far fewer gadgets. One of the things I really like about this is once you learn its vocabulary for like moving and focusing and standing up and going between stances and sprinting and doing melee or aiming a gun, and the way all the things lock together, and you get that kind of puppeteer thing, you then, when you try and combine that with gadgets, the thing you think will happen will almost always work. Like the moment I discovered you can stand up inside a cardboard box was like one of the greatest moments in the game for me, especially when that combines.
Hilarious.
Especially when that combines with the other thing you can do with cardboard boxes, which is put posters on them. So if you find posters around Mother Base, you can then take them, put them on your cardboard box, and if you're just walking around, it's just on the cardboard box. It's like decoration. But if you stand up and that poster happens to be of a standing human, it resemble that standing figure enough to fool guards. So if you stand up wearing a box that has a picture of a Spetsnaz commander saluting on it, Russian guards will immediately salute you when you're just a man standing in a box. And that's only because the control scheme is so consistent that you can kind of experiment in that way. Like, rather than just going like, no, you can't stand up while in box mode. It's just like, well, what would happen? This
recently, so I had the cardboard box and I'd used it, and you're in Afghanistan initially, and you're going through little outposts that have sort of like mostly pretty primitive buildings, and occasionally there'll be like a metal platform or a sort of loading dock or something. And so the cardboard box is a little bit out of place, but then can be made to look a little bit more in place, like on certain, more industrial surfaces and things. But I just recently unlocked the city cardboard box, or desert cardboard box. And so I tried that to figure out, like, why would that be what kind of cardboard box is less conspicuous in a city environment? So I got that one, because I thought mostly I use the cardboard box where it seems intuitive to me that it would look natural, i.e. on sort of like industrial bits. And it wraps a ribbon of urban camo around the box. Not even like covering half of its actual surface area. So it doesn't make it blend into city backgrounds, and also makes it look extremely conspicuous. It's like, that box looks like it contains a military soldier wearing camo. Also, the box, it's very strange. I was looking forward to the box idea because I played Metal Gear, like the demo of Metal Gear 1, and that was my only other experience of it. And Ground Zeroes a bit, but I don't think I had the cardboard box in that. And I thought the way it would work is when it's stationary, it would be basically perfect, and then if they see it move, obviously it would be instantly like, what the fuck? But it doesn't seem to bear out in practice. But interestingly, there is a way to, there is like a mechanic where if you're stationary, there's a way of making yourself effectively invisible, which is if you're prone, you can press the hide button, and then you sort of lie down even further, and you can't move or use anything. Yeah, go double prone. And that really is phenomenally effective. Like, I've had it where someone's seen me, and they're coming towards where I am, and I go prone, and I do the double prone, and they walk like within 1 foot of me, point their gun with the torch on it directly at me, and then just kind of scan around and then go back into... So as far as I know, it's 100% invisible. I've never been spotted under any circumstances with it. But obviously you can't move, and you can't... I think even if you get your binoculars out, it breaks the double prone. But yeah, that's what they thought the cardboard box would be, but no. You use the cardboard box in that circumstance, they just shoot the cardboard box.
The guard AI is really interesting, because I think I could probably comfortably say it's the best AI I've encountered in a stealth game, like in terms of the amount of detail accounted for. And there's so many different things, like factors with what camo you're wearing that I think affect double prone. So because you start off in an environment that Afghanistan's quite homogenous, and like if you're wearing desert camo or like sneaking suit, it's pretty much always right, I think, and I think that does make double prone more effective.
So I'm using the sneaking suit because it's the silent one, and the other ones all say things like, this is better if you're in vegetation, or this is better if you're on sand. And so I've been kind of assuming that the sneaking suit was bad on all of those, but it seems to be okay if you're double prone.
Yeah, especially at night as well, I think it makes a difference.
Right.
But the moment they kind of... One thing I think was really impressive, and maybe this is me misinterpreting what's actually going on, but there are games that have, various states of guard alertness, from like a little bit suspicious to full alert. But Metal Gear is the only game that I've played that actually has like a really intelligent set of systems around that, and dictating what guards can do in different circumstances. So, even guards' communication with each other is gated by a system that you can manipulate, because you can disable their radios. And if you disable their radios, they can't call CP, which is the control point that they capture with. And then if you disable the regional thing, they can't call headquarters. And that stuff is actually like, a system within the game, rather than just being like the magic, we've seen an intruder thing. It's actually something you can break. But the one moment I thought was amazing was I was spotted while chasing a sheep, over a hill while trying to tranquilize a sheep to Fulton balloon back to Mother Base. And a guy who I didn't know was there in sort of long grass saw me-ish. Like, he saw me to the there are so many degrees of seeing you.
I somewhat see you!
Yeah, it's like, there's kind of, huh? And then there's, what? And then there's, ah! And like, but it was somewhere between like, hurt and what.
So what?
Yeah.
What?
What? Which means listen in Old English, weirdly. But
Did Kojima just learn that?
Snake. Anyway, I'd been in that situation before. He lied on the grass. The guy comes over. It was at night, so he comes over with his torch and waves his torch around, and then he kind of goes like, And then sometimes that'll transition into I've seen a suspicious person, and sometimes it'll go to something else. Different guards interact slightly differently to things. But in this case, the guard then saw the sheep that was bounding away from me, shooed it off, like actually had dialogue going, shoo, shoo, and then went, oh, it's just a sheep. And it was the only time when that "it's just rats" thing has actually been.
It was literally a sheep. I saw the sheep.
Because it made complete sense that he would think that the little bit of movement he saw was just a sheep. Because the sheep, he sees something and the sheep comes bounding out of the darkness, and then he actually responds to that. And that was like, oh shit! Like, I got away with this because of that animal, rather than, or else I probably would have gotten away with it because of double prone. But his behaviour changed. Yeah. Logically, and that was so exciting. Like, I
think there is something in the game that baits animals as well, isn't there? So you could that's something so you could intentionally pull that off.
Yeah. Wow. Who stole these plans? Oh, it must have been that bear. Like,
who shot these 3 men? Must have been the dog. I love that. So your companions have had the horse and the dog so far, and both of them can be seen by enemies safely. Like if you're on the horse, you can use horse stealth and side saddle. Well, that's not the word.
It's a double side saddle.
Double side saddle. Yes, that's the word. So that you're kind of hiding half off the horse, and it's incredibly obvious there's still someone on the horse. But that kind of works at mid-range. But if you're off the horse completely, the horse himself is not suspicious to the enemy, but they'll kind of come over. They'll get an exclam above their head, and they'll come over and kind of shoo it away. And they obviously just have a sort of generic animal shooing behaviour.
They do that even when you get the wolf.
Yes.
Even when, you're in the middle of their base and you're hidden, but your eye patch wearing wolf is in the middle of their base. They just go, shoo, get out of here.
Like, this is the thing I found, because like, I fucking love the dog, DD. But the moment I got him and he's grown up form, because you have him as an adorable puppy for a while. Also, the cutscene, like, if there was precedent in the Metal Gear series for Snake having a wolf, or he's a dog actually, he's a wild dog growing wolf, but like, having a dog, because there is a cassette conversation about what kind of dog he is, where you find out a lot about mongrel breeds. There's a line where like Ocelot says something like, Snake says something like, is he some kind of husky? He says like, he's not a husky. And Ocelot goes, no, a husky's like a wolf Spitz mix. This guy's got some wolf in him, but we don't really know what he is. And it's like, thanks, Ocelot. Anyway, back to the Cold War. And, But like, the moment I got him, my R&D department was good enough that I could immediately research, like, his first upgrade. Because by default, he's called, like, Naked D-Dog, because he's not wearing any clothes in the manner of a dog. He's actually, because he has an eye patch, he's wearing more clothes than a dog would. But you can upgrade his first clothes thing, because the horse gets, like, barding and, like, a visor. Which sort of makes sense for a horse that you'd ride into battle. Apart from the fact that when you're stealthing on the horse, one side of the horse, the horse the side the enemy is seeing, literally says Diamond Dogs on it. Like,
it's not one of the logos that you can design.
No, it's not. But
there's that logo is on your shoulder though, like really, really small, and it's on your shield if you have a shield and things like that.
Yeah. But the dog's like first clothes upgrade, which also gives him his knife, which is the best fucking thing.
I saw the upgrades menu, I'm like, what?
Yeah. So it gives him a sneaking suit, which is a lot like Snake's. Like, it's basically like a black wetsuit that he's wearing, and it's, and then he's got like a visor over his eyes, and he's got like, it fits him with a Fulton balloon, so if he takes damage, he gets immediately Fultoned.
Oh wow.
Which is useful, so he can be killed, I think. Like, you can't just lose him. And he has a knife in a sheath, which allows him to kill people. So you've got a giant dog that can only pin people down until you give him a knife.
How does he use the knife?
He draws it with his mouth. So what happens, because you unlock the command, which is DD kill. And the dog AI is great. Like, if you listen to the cassettes, one thing Ocelot says is like, this dog isn't just tough, it's got amazing judgment. And it's great, because the AI is, again, for the dog, is more intelligent. Like, you used to, because he's literally not a robot. Like that's a different thing, right? Like, he is, like, a creature in that world as well, and kind of makes his own calls about how he gets around. Like, unlike almost any AI companion you get in a game, he can't, like, teleport to you. The horse can.
Yeah,
like,
horse
you whistle the horse, and the horse will get to you. DD doesn't work like that. Like, if you whistle and he can't hear you, he doesn't come. He's just off doing DD things. And if he can't jump, like, sometimes you'll get somewhere he can't, like, you'll climb something, like, he can't go over fences, like chain link fences, which you can, which makes sense, he's a dog. So he'll sneak around, and he actually sneaks relatively intelligently. It doesn't just like AI path him, like, the quickest possible way. Like, I've seen him go and then stop as a searchlight goes past and turn a corner and go.
Wow.
And, you know, so he is doing dog stealth. But I can't believe a guard would ever find him and just shoot him, because it's a dog wearing clothes with a knife. But there was an amazing moment where we were, I got an S rank on a mission because me and Dee Dee just fucking killed everybody. Like, we were invading this palace to get prisoners of war out. And there are guards in these hallways, and I fucked up slightly, and one of the guards saw a body, and I rushed down, and then there was another guard there that I hadn't seen. Dee Dee sniffed him, but he kind of came from an angle I wasn't expecting, which sometimes happens with the marking through walls thing. And he turned the corner, and the guy had a helmet, so rather than headshot him, I turned to headshot his mate. I shot his mate, and then without giving the order, I just hear the sort of shing, and Dee Dee flies out of nowhere with a knife in his mouth and just tackles the guy to the ground. And you see, I managed to get a screenshot of it, because there is an animation guards go into when they're like, fuck, there's a dog with a knife. and like, Dee Dee jumps them. He pulls the knife out in his teeth, jumps on the guard, pins them down, and then cuts their throat with the knife, which is incredibly involved for a dog that can already do that. Like, they're born with the equipment to achieve exactly that.
They should have, like, the upgrade should be giving him diamond teeth or something.
No, the upgrade after that gives him a stun knife.
Oh, yeah.
In case you want to play non-lethal.
Yeah, the non-lethal dog knife. But yeah, no, Dee Dee's fucking great. Like, but the fact that he is also systemic. Like, I had a mission where the reason I know that the Fulton balloon will extract him if he gets damaged was because he got spotted in a searchlight killing a guy. Like, and it was outside a base with like a big blasted area outside of it, and they just started fucking firing a mortar. And I was whistling for him to like come to me because I don't want to go to him, and I was just seeing him like hobble across this battlefield with mortars raining down. It was one of those horrific things I've seen. It's like, Dee Dee, no! And I'm just sort of spraying a gun blindly into the night, like firing grenades. It's me! Take me! And then like Kaz goes like, oh no, your buddy's wounded. Like, it's like, oh, and then suddenly a balloon goes off and you just hear him go, woo! And it's like, yes, Metal Gear.
Have you reached the end of his upgrade path yet?
No.
Because I think in Revengeance, one of the first bosses you encounter is a razor blade laser dog. So
I have played that.
Made it off the rails
Foreshadowing.
at some point. Yeah.
Razor dog, laser blade, razor
Laser dog.
You can pet Dee Dee, and I guess maybe he has his own morale meter or something like that. Does that affect how likely he is to obey your commands? Because you can do stuff like you can say, stay Dee Dee, and then like 30 seconds later he's just by your side again, a mile down the road.
I think it might, because there is bond. You have bond with all the companions and it unlocks things. Like, you can't command D-Horse to poo until you've unlocked sufficient bond with him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I've been treating it like full black and white. I'm assuming every time I pet him, it's gonna reinforce whatever behaviour you just did. So if he just found a carrot, I'm not petting him, because I don't really care about carrots. I don't need him to point those out. But if he found an enemy, I didn't know that, I pet him. And then,
good boy, Dee Dee. The best thing is his little woofs. Like, he has a big range of woofs. Stupid attention to detail, but like he growls sometimes when there's like dangers closer. Like, but most of the time, if he's like spotted an entire camp full of guards and knows their exact position down to the meter and their patrol paths, then he communicates that to the snake by going like, whoa. And Snake understands.
like it marks these people on your HUD. You have real-time information about where those people are forever if the dog has barked at their presence.
I think they missed a real opportunity with the horse and the dog, because everyone in the non-linguistic future of paranational war that Snake occupies, everyone sort of forgoes their real names, takes on like an animal-themed moniker, and I feel like rather than Diamond Horse and Diamond Dog, based on the name of the thing, they should be called Actual Horse and Actual Dog to delineate them from the members of the team that are not literally a horse or a dog.
Special honour title.
Yeah, exactly.
For really big.
Yeah, so because it's not like Actual Snake.
Actual Snake was a short-lived commander.
Yeah. What are your best? Everyone's got war stories from Metal Gear. What are yours?
Well, so my favourite thing to do in the whole game is climb into the back of a truck, which I did I knew you could do it early on. Told me you could do it, and I was like, why would I ever do that? And I think I'm right in that it's not that tactically useful. But eventually, I can't remember why, but at one point, I think a truck just parked in a really convenient spot, so I'm like, oh, okay, get in the back of this. And I did. And then you can go prone, and indeed double prone, in the back of the truck. And so you are basically invisible. And you can go back into crouching and like use your binoculars to tag people as you go past. And they will just drive between different outposts. And some of them, like the smaller ones, they just kind of go through the blockades, weave through the different barriers. You go past the whole outpost, you get to scout it all out, and then they just carry on. And then other ones, the bigger ones, they'll often actually park, and then the guys will get out of the cab and will go off and do something. I'm not quite clear what. I don't think they really do anything. I think they just kind of wander around for a bit, and then like 2 minutes later they get back in the cab and they drive off and they'll go to a different base. And it's cool because it's not just it's not just a 2 outpost route where they just go back and forth. They actually seem to have some kind of broader schedule, or perhaps it's just random. And this is such like a weird thing to trigger a sense of total immersion. But lying in the back of that truck, hearing the engine go, hearing like the guards talking around, and it was like dead of night. That's spotlights being swept around to look for intruders, and being driven all the way into the centre of the base, hearing the brakes go, and then hearing them switch off the engine, then hearing them open both the doors of the cab and get out, hearing them walk away, and then just being in perfect silence, and all you can hear is just crickets. It was like one of the most immersive experiences I've ever had in games. I think because it was a situation where all of those ingredients are things that I know about from real life and have experienced. You know, I've been in a car when you turn the engine off and you're suddenly in total quiet. And it's, in real life, it's just a nice atmospheric thing. But in a stealth mission where you're in the middle of a completely hostile base, it's both incredibly convincing and just sort of really adds to the tension. And not that it was like a really scary situation, but it really felt like a sort of, really felt like a stealth moment, you know. I actually felt like a sneaking commando because I was in a hostile place that I got to through pure trickery, and the atmosphere is just so incredibly real. It was awesome. Also, if you're lying in the back of a truck and your buddy is Diamond Dog, he just runs after the truck forever. He just runs across the entire of Afghanistan chasing that truck, and no one ever thinks, so why is that Commando Dog following the truck now?
I believe when he is bonded with you enough, he will get in. Because he will get in jeeps as well, and ride in the passenger seat of jeeps, but not at the start, as far as I can tell.
Well, I've had him ride in my passenger seat in my jeep.
But yeah.
Oh, in fact, I also hijacked a truck, and I expected him to get in, and then I realised the reason he's not getting in is because the door's shut, and he can't open doors. And as far as I know, there's no way for me to open the door for him, so it's just like a logistical problem. Like, there's no way for him to end up.
He definitely doesn't get into jeeps from the start, so you must have bonded with him. Because I tried, because I got in a jeep back at Mother Base, just after
he wasn't getting that one for me either.
And I was whistling for him and stuff like that. And he just
maybe it's because I tranked him as a puppy. That probably formed our bond.
I accidentally tranked him in the field once, because I was trying to trank a man and he killed that man. And while I was shooting, I shot the trank just as DD slit his throat, and DD fell asleep. But he likes me again now. I got that little, you've lost some relationship with DD here. How does he know it was me?
Come on, it could have been anyone.
I love the fact that it remembers people that you've tracked even when you travel then to like the other side of Afghanistan. I first noticed that quite early on when I marked a bunch of guys on my map in a single base, and then went in and infiltrated that base and killed every one of them and captured it, and then looked at my map and there was just a guy at the other side of the world that was marked on my map because he just walked, basically. I must have marked him right at the start, and then sometime in the era since he just walked across the whole map. And I like the systemic stuff, like it allows them to do really nice stuff with the mission design. Like the mission objectives there's like 3 or 4 of them, and they kind of repeat a lot of just like infiltrate this base and kill this guy, or infiltrate this base and rescue this prisoner. But the systemic stuff allows them to do that in such grandly different formulations, like doing stuff like you've got to take down 3 commanders that are meeting in town, but those 3 commanders don't start in the town. They start in different places around the world, and you get told their routes, and so you can choose whether to set up ambushes or meet them midway on their route and that kind of thing. And I had great fun replaying that mission again and again until I eventually S-ranked it by filtering all 3 of them rather than killing any of them.
How did you do it? Because they're in vehicles a lot of the time. Do you do it when they're actually driving, or...?
I got 1 of them while they were driving. It doesn't seem like it's possible to get all 3 while travelling, but yeah, I set up an ambush by sniping from a hill and killing the driver as he went past, and then killed the other one, and then...
Did that trigger like a combat alert?
If you do it fast enough, it doesn't.
No. After I killed the driver, the guy in the passenger seat, who's not the one that you need to kill, he gets out and like runs around to the front, and I wonder if he would have pulled his friend out of the driver's seat and driven off. But I killed him before he found out.
I tranked someone who was driving a truck, and they got out before they passed out. They just sort of very calmly turned the engine off, like opened the door, walked out, and then just collapsed.
That's actually that's road safety. Like, if you're feeling sleepy on the road, you have to pull over and take a nap. That mission, when I did it, I did exactly the same thing. Sniped the driver, killed the other one, and then tranked and Fultoned the remaining commander. Then I snuck into the town where the other 2 were meeting. And I got in this really weird situation, and I think it was actually not the AI breaking, but the AI working, where I knocked over a vase in a room above the room where where they were having their conversation. But, like, towards the end of their conversation, and they said, like, someone check that out. And I think there is a hierarchy for the AI. Like, I think if a commander is there, the commander won't be the one to go and do that sounds weird. If there's a guard available, they will send someone else, which makes complete sense. But, and the guy came up the stairs, so I choked him out, and another guy came up the stairs, so I choked him out, and at this point, they're still suspicious, like the suspicion hasn't gone away, because no one's gone up the stairs and gone, there's nothing here. And so they sent every single guard up there, until it was only the 2 commanders downstairs, which I think is the most amazing, awkward hierarchy situation, where it's like, okay, we're equally, which one of us is going to go, because we're both wearing the red hat. And then I went downstairs, and one of them was just sat in the driver's seat of the Jeep for them to leave, like waiting to go, and the other one was like still kind of like a bit freaking out. So I tranked the guy in the driver's seat of the Jeep, then tranked the other guy, and bundled them both into the back seat of the Jeep, completely asleep, then got into the front seat of the Jeep, and just drove slowly out of the base, like through the remaining sentries, because you drive slowly enough and carefully enough, and they're not next to you, they don't see. So I got this brilliant screenshot of Snake just sort of driving slowly out of the base with these 2 sleepy spectators in the back. Like, oh, they're tuckered out, big meeting, we're going back. Like,
does it feel like there's a perfect way to complete every mission? Like, it sounds a lot like Blood Money in that there's a lot of stuff going on, and you can be really creative and find your own solutions to everything, but you get the impression that the designers have thought out kind of a really cool or a really perfect solution to this mission. There's like sniping someone so they fall into a grave, or...
No, I haven't seen a sense of like, oh, like they mean for me to do it this way. But
there's no glass bottom swimming pool.
Yeah, but the end of mission screen judges you, and it definitely seems to. There's like a set of bonuses you can get, and they're for things like no kills, perfect stealth, no combat alerts, no using reflex mode, and that list almost seems like the laundry list of here's how we kind of think you should try and play it.
That's true, but you can S-rank every mission even by killing everyone. So although it is a stealth game and it's incentivizing that, you don't have to play that way. Like, because it also tracks how many hits you take, for example. So if you kill everyone in the base and just run around with a machine gun like a lunatic but don't get shot, then you can still S-rank it.
It's like you don't get penalized. You don't get penalised. In Ground Zero, you got penalised for kills. In this, you don't. You get penalised more, but for full combat alert. So if you can kill everybody without them going to full combat alert, then you don't take that hit. But even if you do go to full combat alert, because you get points for headshots, it's like it penalises you for taking like a medium approach, where you go to full combat combat alert, but quite passively. But if you go to full combat alert, you're kind of almost encouraged at that point to like fucking shoot everybody, because you want to overtake the deficit by being then really good at killing. And there are side objectives for every mission, a lot of which you can't do when you first encounter the mission because they require later upgrades and encourage replays. Some of which you might. But the other thing, I think one of the things that's great about it is it doesn't set things up sort of as the designer intended to be perfect. what it allows you to do, and I think this is incredibly rare in games generally, actually, is use your intuition to figure stuff out by applying real-world logic to actually find secondary objectives within missions without actually relying on like the game designer or the UI. And I think the best way to explain that is that your voices in the radio, Ocelot and Miller, unlike voiced voices in your ear in action games, aren't just the game speaking to you to explain how to play. They have false information sometimes. They're actually fallible characters and they get things wrong. And I remember a really good example of this was a mission quite early on. And this is, I guess, very, very minor spoilers for a very, very early mission. But it's a mission, it's the first time you get asked to assassinate somebody. And you get this big base, and all the way on the other side of it, if you look at him through the binoculars, you can see this commander talking to some men. And it looks like just an animation of a speech happening in the distance, because he's so possibly far away at that point that it looks like you can't, there's no way you'd get there in time. So it's a bit of backdrop, it's a bit of scenery setting. And if it was, I think, a Splinter Cell game, it absolutely would be scene setting. But then the second time I tried the mission, I landed somewhere else and picked a different approach and managed to get above that meeting as it happened. It required sprinting, but there were areas by that point I understood that I would be in blind spots that I could actually, you don't have to just crouch walk everywhere. It sort of breaks away from that. You can sprint fairly comfortably when you know that you're relatively safe. And I got there in time, and that is a full conversation. You need to be able to understand Russian, which means you need to have extracted an interpreter, which is another system. But if you can understand Russian and you can get there fast enough, that isn't just a bit of backdrop to establish where this guard's going to be, this commander's going to be. It's or a sniping opportunity if you wanted to play it like that. It's a real thing. And if you listen to that full conversation, it completely changes the way you view that character and that mission, and it reveals that some of the information you've given has been wrong. And completely, it changed the way I wanted to play that mission then, and I did something completely different because I wanted to, and the game then accepted that. And there's a lot of examples of that in Ground Zeroes as well, where it just sort of, there are moments where it will tell you what to do, and then there are moments where it backs off, and those moments are often the best, where it's like, something bad will happen, and the character in your ear will say, "Oh, just get out." But if you decide to persevere and disobey and do something on your own initiative that you feel like you should be able to do, in the vast majority of cases, I've only hit one striking example where this didn't work. The game has accounted for you showing your, it doesn't do that frustrating thing games do where you think, I felt like I should have been able to do it this way. Most cases, you can do it that way. And, if you feel like you should be able to actually extract this person you've been sent to assassinate rather than kill them, you will get a bit where Miller will go, this happens in Ground Zero, it's like, you're extracting him? Why? But it won't go mission failed.
Yeah.
And that's such a huge difference, and that's what elevates it from just brilliant to actually world class, I think, is just that moment where you did it your way and the game goes, okay.
I'm getting a little bit insecure about it now though, because I would actually love to do an assassination mission, and it keeps sending me on assassination missions, but I always know it's actually better to extract the guy, and therefore I should be trying to knock him out and Fultoning him, which is a very different challenge and means with my current set of equipment, at least, there's no kind of way to do a long-range sniping thing or remote detonated explosives or anything. It's always going to be get up close and I've got stun grenades. I can melee them, or I could use a tranq pistol. And the game isn't stopping me from doing an awesome, cool assassination, but just that knowledge that, whoever I'm sent to assassinate is probably quite good at something. And anyone who's good at something, you can abduct and then send them back to base, and almost all of them are good. It means the assassination thing is just kind of dirtied. It means every time I do it, I'll know, that was a waste. Shouldn't have killed that. There are it's not always easy to extract though, and it can impede your rating to go for it when it's not advisable. Balloons aren't, the extraction balloon is not a, get out of having to hide bodies or whatever, because they do fucking notice. Really
they shoot it down, there's some great, and it changes based on the state the guard is in. If a guard is only stunned when you extract them, sometimes they'll wake up by the shock of it and go hell, I'm being strapped to a balloon and kidnapped. I've heard man hurriedly radio CP saying, I've seen a suspicious balloon with Alan strapped to it.
Yeah, it's definitely not too easy. But yeah, it just means that the actual killing approach is never the smartest thing to do. If you can do the other thing. I did have an awesome, so I discovered one weird trick to Fulton people is, I heard this from a mother, I don't know why, but...
Doctors hate it.
Yeah,
they hate going to space in a magic balloon.
When a sandstorm is coming in, during a sandstorm you can't Fulton anything because it's such bad weather, it's always going to fail. But when it starts, there's a window where it's already started and everything's completely obscured by the sandstorm, but you still have a 100% chance to Fulton anything, and if you Fulton it then, no one sees it because there's a fucking sandstorm going on. So for some reason that's just fine, and I had a mission where I had to get 2 people out, and I think maybe it was just the one actually, because I used that trick to get him out, and then, because it had been ages doing this mission, I'd fucked it up so many different ways, and I finally crossed this huge open expanse, got to the target, got him ready for extraction, and the sandstorm came in, and I thought, oh fuck, I was just about to extract him, and it isn't going to work, and I saw it had the 100% chance, so I went for it, and no one saw it, and I thought, awesome, one weird trick. And then also realised, holy shit, there's a sandstorm, I could just run all the way back to where I came from, and I don't have to sneak across the entire thing all over again, and that was awesome.
If Fultoning someone you actually want to kill during a sandstorm is a kind of good, fun lottery thing. It's actually a flawless assassination because it doesn't leave a body. Because you just get radioed, it's like, that guy didn't make it. Like, that was a 30% chance that he wasn't going to get blown into a hill somewhere, and no, that happened. So that's, yeah. It's brilliant. The moment that, I think, the moment that it kind of, I guess, definitely settled for me is like, yeah, this is astonishingly good, was sneaking into a base, and there's the missions where you get a rating, but also these side ops, which actually happen in the open world, and if you're just roaming the open world, you can do them whenever, which don't give you a rating, it's just binary, did you do it or not, and those are often sometimes more fun, because you don't feel bad about fucking up slightly, and it was to extract 2 guys who were hidden in like a kind of really, really well entrenched base, with canyons all around it, and like one way in and out, and they're locked in this cabin, and I decided I was going to do it lethally, but I also decided that I really wanted to like do it as like a show of, like, for it, rather than it be me reacting, it would be like that moment, like a lethal episode of the A-Team, where there's this sort of like complicated plan that you want to see from the guard's perspective. Like, a lot of it feels like orchestrating an action movie. And it's the moment that you want to see the hero's presence, not through what they're doing, but through how the people it's happening to experience it. And so I snuck around the base and I placed C4 on, their air radar, their anti-air gun, and their 2 machine gun emplacements. I had to kill a few guards on the way around, but like not in a way that was noticeable, and they hid all the bodies. Got to and I saw there's a jeep at the back of the base, got to the cell, or not the cell, and then snuck one prisoner, waited in the cell, and called in my chopper, which has these 2 kind of like massive miniguns on the side, as a support. So you can call in the support chopper, and it loses you rating if you do it in missions as a bailout thing, but it annihilates everything in an area. And then you wait for the dynamic radio thing to happen where they go like, CP, I've seen a suspicious chopper, CP, and then at that point I just like systematically press the detonator 4 times, and you kind of see it from the outside perspective where it's like, first their AA gun goes up, then their radar that allows them to see the helicopter, then their communications, then the machine gun, and it's like, at which point and all the guards are turned to look at this helicopter. I take one prisoner out, take him to the Jeep, put him in the back of the Jeep, take the other prisoner out, put him in the back of the Jeep, get in the front of the seat of the Jeep, and just drive through this line of people as the helicopter comes in the opposite direction, like passing above me, blaring, man-eater. And like, it was just fucking sick. And then like but also the moment where you then easily seamlessly transition to, and now come pick me up here. And you like bundle the prisoners into the helicopter and you roll away, and it feels like, that would have been a set piece in any other action game, and that was just totally me deciding to do it that way. And that's,
I really like extracting people without the Fulton. Like, sometimes for plot reasons they won't let you do it, and sometimes they just don't recommend it. And other times, if someone's injured, like, it's a bad idea because they might die in the process. And, like, putting them on the back of your horse and galloping out and then trying to find a safe spot for the chopper to land, and as you say, choosing freely where you want it is awesome. Another trick I've found that I absolutely love is that you can call in supply drops anywhere, and they're useful for replenishing. The main thing I need them for is replenishing my silencer, because the silencer runs out. And the only disadvantage is if you don't have a very strong support team, and you level up your teams by abducting people and bringing them back to your base. If you don't have a very strong one, that takes ages for the supply drop to come. Apparently, if you have a better team, they come faster. And it's boring to kind of just wait around. So what I've taken to doing is, if I'm on my way somewhere, I'll look at the map, look ahead on the road by like 500 meters and say I want it there. And I'll try and judge where I'm going to be in like 3 minutes time, and then gallop along on my horse. And the first time I ever did it, it was just 100% perfect. You can see it like a little timer ticks down, and you also see the thing like being whipped around in the wind and sailing into the exact place you chose it. And just my horse like cantering to a stop and me slipping off it just as the box lands and bursts open, and all the shower of cool toys just is immediately picked up, and just get back on and carry on riding.
If you want proof that this is probably the game of the year, you can also do that with the horse. So if you want to swap from DD
to summon
the horse in battle, he is also dropped in as a supply drop. And there's just this site where cause I used DD to clear a minefield, I think, and then I needed DD horse to get somewhere else. And DD at which point will get Fulton ballooned off into space, and and then you hear the sound of a plane going over, and you just hear this kind of parachute opening. You look up, and there's just this magnificent horse descending very calmly from the sky in a helicopter in a parachute that then bursts into flames because they didn't bother to kind of have a way of simulating the parachute draping to the floor, or so that the parachutes burn up when they get close to the ground, which makes it discreet. But this horse descends in a halo of flame and lands, and it's
apparently you can.
Sorry, Tom.
Sorry. So I want to go back to using a dog to clear a minefield.
He can smell mines.
Okay. You're not throwing a stick into the minefield.
DD. That's why he does mine.
Great idea.
Okay.
You have great judgment.
He can smell mines, and then I get him to sit next to me while I throw grenades at the mines, and that's how I walk the dog.
Apparently you can assassinate people by calling in a supply drop upon their head.
Yep.
Can you do that with the horse? Can you call the horse down upon their head? I don't see why not.
CP, I've spotted a suspicious hawk. You can
CP, I don't know how to say this, but
you can get a remote activated device that creates a blow up model of a soldier at a location. So you plant it, and then you can go away and you can press the button, and it goes and inflates this big inflatable soldier that people will then investigate. If you trigger it while someone's standing on top of it, it knocks them out, like a kind of Jack in the Box punch thing, where it's boink, and then game's so dumb but so good.
Weirdly polished in all these little ways. I mean, I love the simple things like if you call for D-Horse while you're running, then she runs over and matches your speed, so you
alongside you, so you have that. This
time.
It creates that moment from it seems to create that moment that it feels like it's in every Indiana Jones probably isn't, where you're running down the runway after the plane that's definitely pulling away, and then you need the horse to come up alongside you so that you can go. I did that while chasing a jeep, where I'd really ineptly tried to kidnap someone out of the back of a jeep, and they'd woken up and gotten away because I'd made D-Horse poo in the road, which makes the jeep spin out of control, but they'd woken up before I could get to the guy, and so I was just sprinting in this kind of come on, and then some D-Horse is there running next to me, and then he swings seamlessly onto the horse, and then pull a grenade launcher out because he decided he didn't need to extract him anyway.
Sorry.
Does the silly stuff spoil it for you in any way?
No.
The silly stuff. I don't want to call it Kojima-isms because I don't know what he's actually responsible for, but I remember watching a trailer, I think it was third one, I've lost count, but Snake interrogates someone by grabbing him by the balls, gets some information out of him, dives into an oil drum, and then rolls around and then throws up. I mean, I never played that game, but it might have just added some levity to what would otherwise be really po-faced.
I think it almost acknowledges how you play games to a degree. There's a lot of it is in respect of if we're going to do this, this should work and this should work. So if it's silly, that's fine. I don't know.
I really liked that to begin with, the Phantom Pain, there's not actually that much silly stuff. To begin with, you don't have Diamond Dog, you've just got Horse, and you don't have inflatable blow-up dolls, you don't have the cargo box, you don't have
can't poo.
The horse can't
He doesn't trust you enough to poo.
It feels like a sequel in some ways to, I don't know if you remember a game called Project IGI from 2000, which was it was made by a team that their previous game was a flight simulator, and so it was militaristic and it was accurately militaristic, and the AI was shit, but it gave you these bases in this quite open area that you could then infiltrate and snipe and that sort of stuff. And the Phantom Pain, for the first, for me it was about the first 12 hours felt like that, and then when it started to introduce just a little bit more of the silly stuff, because I'm still not that much further than that in, but when it started to introduce Diamond Dog and you have the cargo box and that kind of stuff, I felt ready for it at that point. I felt like I've played the kind of straight version of this game, and I quite would I understand enough of the way that the systems interact that now giving me these toys that allow me to experiment with that in more outlandish ways is quite exciting.
I think like the criticism I'm trying to formulate this into, well, I'm currently, as in a long time, I'm probably going to write something about. I don't think the criticism of Kojima is like a frustrated filmmaker is fair at all. And even though, because I think there's a difference between long cutscenes and actually wanting to make a film. And I think that's the thing I love about Metal Gear is that it actually really wants to be a game first and foremost. And it has, plot stuff admittedly a bit less than previous Metal Gear games. And it has very Metal Gear-y things. It has sort of, the clever stuff Metal Gear has always done. Swapping your pad around to be Psycho Mantis, because he can't read your mind if you're in a different pad slot in Metal Gear Solid and that stuff. And it has that in it as well, which in itself is fourth wall breaking. Like, these games have always been about kind of being games. And this feels like, I think Sam from PC Gamer put it well when he said that if this feels like the game they've always been trying to make, in a way where it's like, this is the sort of logical expansion of how do you do a stealth game where all the options you feel like you should have are there. And it's not perfect yet. You probably won't know the things you can't do in this one until they add them in a future game. This is Kojima's last. And for me, the silly stuff acknowledges something that I think is under-acknowledged in a lot of games, particularly like Western military games, which is that games almost always end up silly regardless of what you want the tone to be. And I think that's something that almost every game creator struggles with, especially at this end of the spectrum where you're talking about, war and blah, blah, blah. Because, we see it with every pen and paper role-playing game. We've definitely seen it. Where it doesn't matter what the narrative is on paper, you will, I was talking to Pip about this, it doesn't matter what the planned narrative for your Dungeons & Dragons group is, that group of people is going to be a bunch of violent incompetents. That's what they will end up as. They will kill too many people because they can't figure out how to solve a problem in a different way, and they will fuck up enough small things that they couldn't possibly be as accomplished as the story makes them out to be. And it ends up silly, and it's just putting humans in a room playing makes things silly eventually. And I really like that Metal Gear acknowledges that. And actually plays with it as sort of, isn't afraid to be video gamey. And to the little bling you get when you pick up diamonds and you know what I mean? It's not going to pretend that hunting down collectibles in the open world isn't video gamey. So it makes it video gamey. And I don't know, maybe there's a complaint to lodge against that, but I really prefer it. I prefer it to the Ubi world thing of trying to somehow tell the mature story, but also have the video game and never quite reconcile them and end up with the Far Cry thing of, I'm a man who's ostensibly finding himself on an island, but really I'm just killing a fuckload of animals and wearing them. Snake, if that happened in Metal Gear would own it. And I don't think Far Cry ever will,
For me, it's, I do enjoy that stuff and I like it. And I'm not the target audience for the story, and I was never really going to pay attention to the story at the best of times. And every time I do give it a chance and watch a bit of a cutscene, I end up skipping it. But it makes it even more absurd to try and take seriously the incredibly heavy-handed and deathly serious plot stuff when all this silly stuff has been happening not only in your own actions, but then also acknowledged by the game and encouraged by the game with inflatable decoys and posters that people think are real people and stuff. And then cuts to a cutscene where someone's talking about the meaning of human nature and stuff.
Yeah, I think they're smarter games than they get credit for in that I don't think anyone involved doesn't know that that's the effect of the game. I don't think you can be so detail-oriented to have a separate AI routine if the guard has seen a sheep and not notice that your hospital intro, where it's really violent and horrific and war crimes are committed, is going to be a bit discordant with the subsequent game about making a horse poo. I thought this about Ground Zeroes, actually. I got to the end of my experience with Ground Zeroes and started to think that game has some really, really nasty shit in it. And I actually thought it earned it by the end of my time with that game in a very specific way that was a different talk. But I think the way I put it is Metal Gear is so clever a lot of the time that with exceptions, I think it deserves almost the critical benefit of the doubt to the extent that it's worth assessing to figure out what it's trying to do with something. Whereas, a counterpoint like No Russian in Call of Duty, I don't think that's being deliberately discordant with how people play that game. I think that's just dumb. In Metal Gear's case, the thing I think it is where it does just sort of just go oh, what the fuck are you doing, is character design for quiet.
Yeah.
That's not because there's always been a silly bawdiness to Metal Gear, which I think is actually quite fun, which is the picture of a lady on a cardboard box and then a man goes, oh, and then you punch him in the face.
Yeah.
It's unreconstructed, but it's daft, and it's explicitly daft and it's played for laughs, whereas Quiet is explicitly played for titillation, and that's...
There is stuff to do with Paz, though. I mean, not just in Ground Zeroes, but in previous Metal Gear games, which is troubling. And
what do you mean, like the date thing in Peace Walker? Yeah, that's weird. There's such a... Paz's tapes in Peace Walker are so strange. Like, because Paz is a character who is presented to you as like a 16-year-old schoolgirl. Who, okay, Peace Walker spoilers, but a years old Vita game, so whatever. Who is not. She's indeterminate age, designed to look like that, designed to kind of infiltrate people as being the innocent. Designed
to look like an animal schoolgirl.
Yeah, I know I've read people try and defend the bit where you have a side off in Peace Walker to go on like a date with her, which is played a bit like those Japanese dating games. Yeah,
and if you do things in the right order, you can sleep with her inside your cardboard box.
Which is non-canon based on her cassette tapes. And that, you know, and they do a vast 180 with the seriousness which that character is taken, both within Peace Walker and subsequently. And I actually think that's one of the most interesting things in Metal Gear, but I do think it's a different discussion, because I think it would be here for another hour for trying to explain why I think they actually pulled that off. But it's not quite the same problem. I think Paz is a whole separate thing, because I think that game has always had a problem with how it presents female characters, because it's all about its big character with mercenaries. Like every Metal Gear game, even the first Metal Gear game has mercenaries with a shtick. Like, you know, people who show up on like, I'm B's guy and like, or, you know, Sniper Wolf in Metal Gear Solid, or Psycho Mantis, and you know, all the, you know, people with animal names that have cool things. It's superheroes. It's what they've always done. And I'm pretty much sure that the end in Metal Gear Solid 3, who's an extremely old man with a parrot, is the only non-snake sniper in Metal Gear who doesn't have his boobs out. Sniper Wolf does. Quiet definitely does. Like, it's a running, recurring issue, and it's probably one of the older things in that game that's left that's still a bit like, oh, come on, really?
There's later plot stuff to do with the Phantom Pain, which I haven't reached yet, but I've read about, which sounds really troubling to do with Quiet as well.
No, I haven't got that yet, so I'm not going to...
We can't talk about it, sadly.
Yeah. I don't know, I'm not going to defend the ends of the earth, but I do enjoy the daft stuff to the extent that I'm sort of... I don't know, it's far from the only game to make those mistakes, and it's so good in other regards that you kind of want it to at least have a point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've got a Paz poster now, so I'm looking forward, now that I know that you can stick that on your cardboard box, to going home and see what happens when I do that.
Yeah.
John!
Hi.
You've been playing a game that's not the one we've just spoken about for an hour.
Yes.
What game have you been playing?
Spelunky.
Hey!
Dota 2.
Oh.
Both these things are true, because I checked your Steam games, what you've been playing list, to see what you might...
I've mostly been playing Stasis, which is a point-and-click isometric horror adventure game.
Which looks really nice from the screenshots.
It does. It's beautiful. It came through Kickstarter and is mostly the work of one guy, Christopher Bischoff, who's in South Africa. And he's done graphics and story and a lot of the sounds. I think he hired a couple of people for music and that sort of thing. But it's, fantastic adventure game. I mostly backed it because it looked like an Infinity Engine game, and I was having withdrawal symptoms. But it's set in this dilapidated sci-fi dystopian future on a spaceship in orbit around Neptune, where you wake up from your pod, your stasis pod, and lots of things have very obviously gone wrong. And then it's up to you to adventure and use things on other things and find out what's going on. The story isn't amazing. It mostly exists as just a basic kind of motivation to get you from scene to scene. There's an evil, mad scientist doctor and a girl who talks to you through your earpiece. And
so it is a video game.
It is a video game. Unfortunately, it asks you to care at all about your family, who are missing, and you see for about 5 seconds beforehand. But
Did they seem nice? Did you attach?
the parents sang a lullaby for the child as it was going into like deep sleep stasis, which made me vomit. I'm not good with emotions.
Do you hear that lullaby like echoed back
Echoing
throughout
Do you need to sing a lullaby when you're about to cryo freeze your child? Like, go to sleep.
It doesn't really matter.
Go to sleep. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But the main draw for me is investigating all the locations, which are beautiful, and
Is it isometric?
it's like real isometric. Everything's pre-rendered, which means that he's been able to throw huge amounts of detail at the backgrounds and make them incredibly pretty. They have an aesthetic borrowed from stuff like Dead Space and Event Horizon, that kind of... It feels like those old kind of kit bash ships where like a modeler sat down and recreated this thing in 3D space and made it all work and that kind of thing. But it's also obviously evil. There's spikes everywhere, and it's like
Like the Event Horizon ship.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this was already going to hell, wasn't it?
It's not just like the Star Wars walkways, so you can fall off down an infinite hole. It's like you'll fall down the infinite hole and get cut up by buzzsaws and lasers.
Yeah. There's that corridor in Event Horizon that I fucking love. Before the ship tumbles into a pan-hell dimension parallel state thing, spoilers, where it's just a walkway to the engine room that's surrounded by a giant like serrated blade tunnel. And like, why is that there in a zero-G spaceship?
It's the bit on Galaxy Quest where they are trying to get to the engine room or something like that, and there's a giant pit, and then there's a ceiling thing which is smashing down that they have to duck under. And Sigourney Weaver's character does say, "Why did they build this? Why is this here?"
I was looking at it and wondering, my art brain turned on, and I was wondering why the characters weren't like real 3D, because with Pillars of Eternity and Shadowrun and stuff like that, you've got this really nice blending of pre-painted, pre-rendered backgrounds, so you can get really beautiful things there. But then you have 3D characters, so they have nice animation, and then well lit all the time and stuff like that. And then I realised it's because if the main character is pre-rendered, you can do really horrific, gruesome things to him. You can like melt all his skin off, and his bones clatter to the floor. You can cut him into like infinity pieces, and blood just goes everywhere, and get covered in bees and roll around. So it's kind of got this.
Where
like,
did the bees come from? Sorry to back onto the bees, but why are there bees in space?
There's
Is that a spoiler?
There's plants, and there's food production.
And where there's plants, there's deadly bees.
Yes.
There are bees in Rapture, so it checks out. Anytime you're going to isolate yourself from the rest of society, you've got to have some bees there too.
But it's got that kind of like Jason X slasher film type thing for it. Like it's like Monkey Island, where it kills you occasionally.
And then says,
Monkey Island specifically
this
doesn't,
couldn't
but this like it's almost like a reward. Like you see, like one puzzle has like a huge gas tank, and you have a blowtorch in your inventory, and it's like, I think if I do this, it's just going to explode. Let's find out. And there's
Sounds a bit like Another World, or like those old like 2D like Sidon, adventure games where you would have like grotesque, bespoke animations.
The modern equivalent is maybe Limbo, which it's lots of trial and error to advance through that, but the animation's so nice when you get skewered by the spider that you don't mind so much.
yeah, exactly.
Is there like pressure? Are you being chased by things? Is there any kind of like...
Yeah,
time
there's a
element?
threat, and that's probably getting into spoilers and stuff. But I'm sure you can imagine what kind of thing it might be on a research ship specifically looking at furthering medical science through human experimentation. and stuff like
Bees, then.
that. It's actually great because the in the story the evil dystopian corporation, obviously, that's funded this whole thing is called the Kane Corporation.
Oh no!
Just in case you weren't sure they were evil. But he spelt it Cayne, and unfortunately my brain occasionally reads that as Kanye. Which actually elevates it. We're in this horrific dystopian future where Kanye, the God Emperor,
Post Kanye's presidency into his space program. Yeah.
Beezus.
Oh, man. Jeez, that's a good joke.
But yeah, and Alec Mayer on RPS mentioned, I think it's a good point, that the puzzles in this are great. Because it is a point and click, and there are puzzles, and you do use things on other things. But first and foremost, they're all contextual. They make sense. And to me, that's a lot more important than them being hard. Like, I really enjoyed Broken Age Act 1 a lot more than Act 2 because the puzzles flowed a lot more. And whereas in the second one, they were obviously coming up with like weird events to really challenge you. Yeah. In the first one, things flowed. It's like, oh, I need to do this, this, and this. You think for a little bit, you're satisfied, and then you move on.
In some cases. I had like a text file I kept for Broken Age Act 1 of all the puzzles where I was like, oh, come on, that doesn't make any physical sense. But yeah, I agree. It was 2 had more of that.
Is it actually frightening, or is it just more kind of creepy and grotesque?
It's got a really nice atmosphere, so it is spooky, and it's kind of in a lot of cases, it's the slow walking zombie kind of thing. It's like the horror and the suspense and stuff like that. I don't really get on with horror games. I've still never managed to play Alien Isolation or anything like that because it's just too intense. But I really enjoyed this because it's isometric and you have some kind of disconnect with what horrific things are happening to your little guy. So it kind of just mutes it a little and lets me enjoy it without jumping out my chair and leaving the room and turning all the lights on.
I think I'm probably the same. Like, Stasis actually appeals to me more than those other games exactly for that reason.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Sure.
From questions.
From questions. Oh, we almost said it sensibly then.
I always say it sensibly and someone always corrects me to the wrong version.
I'm going to have to tilt my head slightly so I can see my screen. Aaron Probert writes, Dear Creighton Crowbar, you're a bunch of Daily Mail reading cockwombers.
Fuck you, man.
Now he continues. This is a hypothetical scenario. Who have been placed in charge of... I'm sorry. My voice went. Who have been placed in charge of Room 101 and decide to use your newfound positions of power to destroy the scourge of modern society and the source of all evil, the computer game industry. Which PC game would you place into Room 101 to do the most amount of damage, considering that all subsequent games that it influenced would then cease to exist? Yours lovingly, Aaron.
I feel like Half-Life is a pretty good choice for influencing PC games.
See, I was going to go with Valve, but I was going to say Counter-Strike. Because it was...
Just destroy Valve.
In part, looking at the stats for Counter-Strike every time they released a patch for it, and the player numbers dipped and the server numbers dipped because everyone had to go to File Planet to download the patch for like 2 days. They said that that was one of the motivations between trying to build or expand upon OneNet, which was the thing.
God, yeah.
the thing that was kind of like Valve and Sierra's bit of server tech for downloading maps when you connect to servers automatically and stuff like that, and basically what eventually led to becoming Steam. So I feel like if you destroyed Counter-Strike, which was really, you know, one of the first early access games and one of the first constantly updated games made in public, and game that partly inspired Steam, then that's gonna take out a big chunk of the industry, probably.
You could wipe out a big chunk of the industry and a lot of YouTube by putting Infiniminer into 101.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I wonder how long it would take for someone to do it.
Someone else to do it.
Yeah.
Is Minecraft inevitable? Would be
Because, yeah, Zach, the Infiniminer guy, wasn't going to do it again. He was done with that. He specifically said, I'm done with this type of game forever.
Robert Yang writes an interesting alternate history about what happens if id never released Doom like 2 months after Myst came out. Because Myst came out and got a bunch of press attention and like the New York Times and mainstream media coverage, and you know, is still one of the best selling PC games ever. It just sold millions and millions of copies because it was so pretty. But it wasn't the thing that became influential. Doom came out 2 months later and it became a mainstream success, and it's super violent and super fast paced and that kind of thing.
Do you not think the world would have just seen through the fact that Myst is a big pile of shit?
Maybe. Maybe.
Sorry to anyone who likes Smith.
And that's why PC gaming would have died then and there.
Well, this entire
that's what
medium
games
is
are.
bollocks, so no one cares about this wizard. Close the whole fucking thing down. Any other suggestions?
I might cautiously suggest Baldur's Gate, which kind of brought fantasy but RPGs back into the limelight and back into popularity. Maybe without that you wouldn't have leveling systems or experience or classes or powers or anything like that. But it might be a little bit of a stretch.
I guess Ultima would be another good one.
Yeah.
If you killed the Ultima series, then you might not even have the MMO.
If we had like really in-depth sales stats and financial stats for the companies, we could strategically figure out which game is best to kill from history, so that the company has to fold as well. Because in some cases, like even if that game had been a disaster and or they'd never been able to make it or release it, they would have just made and released something else. But in other cases, if that game had not existed, then they just wouldn't have been able to survive. And
Probably another reason Half-Life's an interesting choice, because if without Half-Life there is no Counter-Strike, then Valve's profile stays as,
they never had the money to set up Steam or anything.
Yeah, but they would probably have done something else that was good. That's
Maybe
the thing,
Ricochet would have become really big.
Similarly, I mean, if you just go back far enough, you can kind of find the industry was small enough. Still kind of is that you
Maybe
can
we could just kill one man.
yeah. If you just destroy Doom, then it'd never keep making those kinds of engines, and Valve can never get the Quake engine from them years later.
You might as well go to Commander Keen if you're going to do that, and therefore maybe go to Contra and
I wonder if you eliminated the Unreal Engine from history, because there's huge amounts of the mainstream industry.
But was it established enough by then that the industry would have just found something else to use?
Yeah, maybe. It's a question of whether, because obviously Idra, had their own thing, but they didn't license. They weren't sort of into licensing it out, whereas on Epic were. And it'd be interesting if Epic weren't doing that. Would it eventually have done it, or would it have been someone else?
Just stop Carmack getting rid of Ed's pet cat, so that productivity is just slightly lower at the company. Everything goes to shit.
It feels like the beginning of the opening of Red Alert. Like you go
Tim Curry comes back in time and grabs the cat from his.
Yeah, exactly. No, puts the cat back. Adds a second cat. I actually rewatched those Red Alert 3 Tim Curry cutscenes the other day. Space. Those are amazing.
Yeah,
they are surprisingly.
Incredible man.
I think because I never actually played Red Alert 3, but I loved when we spoke about last week on Active Aggression Chat. I fucking loved those cutscenes in How Cheesy They Were, and I thought they were the coolest thing in the world. And it was such a great decision for them to just full on appreciate. They had the technology in 2000 and whatever to not make Red Alert 3 the cheesiest Red Alert game, but they fucking went for it.
Yeah.
Kudos to them. Those guys get it. That's probably what Metal Gear should be.
I would watch that. If it was actually Kiefer Sutherland's ass crack that you could see in that opening cutscene.
If only.
I'm going to the one place where you won't find me, Commander, strapped a balloon to himself. Mother base!
Oh wait, you live there.
No, I'll say it's a good plan. Hugh writes, sorry I didn't say your name so angrily, Hugh writes, Dear Crate and Crowbar, I do apologise, but my question requires you to venture even past console land and into the murky depths of mobile gaming. I often see very well designed mobile games that both work within the limitations of the platform while also utilising its perks like a touchscreen. I think these games are excellent and a great addition to the gaming world. I've also seen some games trying to emulate console and PC games such as Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto and Gran Turismo. I recently downloaded Gangstar Miami, which is a GTA ripoff, as an experiment. The game took me about 5 hours to beat, or 10 bus rides, and I must say that for, I think it's 10 New Zealand dollars, or £4.16, I found it to be a good deal. It did, however, feel nowhere near as good as a proper Grand Theft Auto game, as the developers seem to waste their time trying to achieve the impossible and faithfully allowing to play GTA on the bus. Do you think developers are wasting their time, or is there a place for these sorts of games to exist? Good luck, future podcasts. Hugh. P.S. What's your favourite mobile video game?
I forgot what I was going to say. Hoplite is my favourite mobile game. That's the easy part. Although I haven't played it that much recently. It's really frustrating. They added a daily challenge to it, but it's not daily challenges in the normal sense. There's not like a particular randomisation seed and you all play it and you all compare your scores. It's just, today the challenge is you must get this many, like a completely pre-scripted puzzle that they've made. And yeah, it doesn't scratch the same itch at all. If it had a day changer mode, I think I'd still be playing it. I was going to say, like, XCOM, isn't the mobile version of that pretty good?
It's great, yeah.
And that's just like, you know, have the same experience, right?
I think it's suitable though. That's the problem. Like,
Yeah.
I think it almost becomes like a tautological answer because, like, if a game really isn't suitable for a platform, don't try and make it work on that platform. It's a bad idea. But like, I definitely, like, when I'm trying to find, if I'm interested in finding a game for my iPad or my phone, I'm immediately put off if it looks like they've done on-screen controls or something. Like, the moment it doesn't just use the interface that the device already has, I'm no longer interested at all because it's like, why?
I don't have an iPad, so I'm only playing on my phone, and that means pretty much every single mobile game that requires any kind of skill or time-sensitive response is completely out. Just everyone that has been recommended to me, and they come recommended in extremely high terms, I'll try it for like 5 minutes and realise I just can't play this. My fingers are not thin enough. Like, sorry, but my fingers are about 1 centimetre across each, and I don't know where within that 1 centimetre range the touchscreen is going to respond. Sometimes it's basically in the middle, sometimes it's a little off centre. I don't know why. And just anything that requires precise control under time pressure is completely out. So all of my favourite mobile games are turn-based or word games or things like that.
I feel like a fair portion of my childhood was playing shit knockoff games of the proper game series that did those things well. Like, I loved Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but I also played a lot of Body Blows and Body Blows 2 on the Amiga 500, and they were just objectively bad fighting games. And I adored Sensible World of Soccer, but I still played Football Glory, the Crow Team rip-off, where they were literally sued because it was such a rip-off of Sensible World of Soccer. This was before they ever did Serious Sam, of course. Or playing the Manchester United branded, also a Swatch clone game, or just endless numbers of these. And it was just, hey, this is faintly like that thing that I like. And even when I was 6 or 7 years old and hadn't lacked critical faculties of any kind, I knew, but it's a bit rubbish compared to the other thing, but it's similar. It's similar to a thing that I like, and I already know how to play it. And that was a big thing when I was a kid as well, just, games are really hard. They have lots of buttons and my brain is small. I don't get that far in any of them, and so a thing that is just like, oh hey, I can play the first 3 levels of this thing over and over again until I get stuck and can't progress past it anymore. It was just like, hey, this is new. That was fine. And so I wonder if the mobile equivalence is just the same. It's like you're stuck in a bus and a slightly shoddy GTA clone just hits a certain spot. It's just kind of fine.
What's your favourite mobile game?
I really love Hoplite as well, but I can't say that. So I just checked, and I got 2,319 holes into Desert Golfing.
Yeah.
Again, it's pretty good.
John, favourite?
I really like Ridiculous Fishing, mostly because it works really well with the touchscreen and it's got fantastic art style. But I wanted to shout out to Badlands as well, which was like an infinite scrolling puzzle type thing, which is just an incredibly gorgeous game.
Is that the one Silhouettes? You play like offer you
exactly.
spiky creatures.
I didn't buy it. I was at a bar slightly drunk. 2 very nice Scandinavian guys took my phone and gave it back to me with Badlands on it. And it turned out they were the developers.
I've met some of them, they're very nice.
Yeah.
I did that EGX, or before it was EGX, when it was Eurogamer Expo a couple of years ago, when I was hovering around as a babby freelancer, and I met a guy who'd made like a really, I totally forgot the name of the game and the name of the man, but he'd made like a really fun sort of variant on Snake, and I played it on like his demo station, and he was like, I was like, what else is this on? He's like, oh, I actually already released it for iOS, but I'm going to put it on Steam at some point. And so I just pulled out my phone. I was like, is this it? And he's like, yeah. And so I just bought it, like, right in front of him. And I've never seen a man happier in my entire life. Like, I don't think I've ever done a single thing that has made a guy feel like that immediate sort of change from like, what are you doing, to delight. Like, you know, I was just like, and it was like 50p. I was like, this is cool. I'm going to play this on the train home. Probably favourite game is, it's either Cannibal or Super Hexagon. Like, I tend to go for really simple things on my phone, or I feel a bit pressured to keep looking at my phone if it's something more involved than that. But I will always love Cannibal's sound design and atmosphere. Like, it's probably the only for what is maybe the first Endless Runner. I don't know if it's broadly credited with being the first Endless Runner, but it's like still the only one that has an actual, it feels like it has a story. Like there's fucking cannibal lore. There has to be. Like, you know, the robots and the what situation you're in, that kind of thing. And Super Hexagon is Super Hexagon. So, like, I play Super Hexagon in any format, really.
Yeah, I've played a shitload of Super Hexagon, mostly on PC, but it was the first game I installed when I got a new phone, basically.
We have a good question from Twitter. Thomas Whitney asks, for John R. and Tom F., how do you balance aesthetics and the need to clearly convey game information?
With a degree of difficulty, I think it would be fair to say.
It's mostly knife fighting.
John and I duel to the death. If he wins, aesthetic wins, and if I win, then clarity wins. It's like, I think it's one of the only things where we have a lot of back and forth, or on Gunpoint and to some extent on Heat Signature, because I'm obsessed with clarity, and I want things to be like not just clear, but like so clear you sort of can't help but know them. Like you just have to just look at the screen and instantly know how mechanics work, which is kind of impossible. But I think if you try for it, then it makes things a lot better. And just from like reviewing games, so often my complaint comes down to like, it's not that I can't, given time, figure out what on screen means which thing, but it's that it's so much work to do that. That's all my brain is doing, and the game's kind of ruined.
You need to play more shitty mobile clones than games you've already played.
Yeah, perhaps. So yeah, I'm like on the rare occasion that I'm asking for any changes at all from John. It's usually because I think, couldn't the player get confused about this, or might they think this is solid but it's not, or might they think that they're not see how.
I play games, so I understand the need to make things obvious and to reflect the art, for the art to reflect the mechanics and stuff like that. But occasionally you just want to make something look really pretty.
Yep. Often you make something that just looks so good that you just, like, as a player, you just want to interact with it. So if, like, if it was something that wasn't meant to be interactable, then it either has to be made less interesting, or we have to figure out a way for it to be interactable. Like the was it the AC-130 gun that you put in Gunpoint? Because it is, to be fair, it's a gun manufacturer that you're infiltrating, and so one of the decorative pieces.
Sorry, it's the A10 Warthog gun. The GAL-8U.
Is that the one where it's like, it's just so massive and so heavy that they designed the whole plane just to kind of carry it around?
And if you fire it for too long, then the plane stalls and drops out.
You still have to go backwards, basically.
Anyway, it's huge and it's in the glass case, and I think, did you say something to the effect of like...
I might not have helped that. I might have tweeted with a mocked up shot of Conway cross-linking and then riding the machine gun. Didn't help.
Yeah.
You don't have license to accidentally announce features that you want in the game.
I did that with the forklift as well. I mocked up another one of him driving a forklift.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, stop making interesting things like I can't be bothered to code.
Like aliens in Heat Signature.
That's not a code thing.
Menthol Penguin writes, again on Twitter, how often do you try out Game Jam games, and any current ones you'd recommend?
Yes. The recent Ludum Dare Game
How
Jam.
often? Yes.
One. The recent Ludum Dare Game Jam was on the theme of You Are the Monster, and I haven't really gone through and looked at all the entries that came out for that, because there were some great looking ones where you're like a giant multi-tendrilled undersea thing. There were like 2 different games that were exactly that concept, and you bash the boats with your tendrils. But the one I did play was Slime something by Alan Hazelden. What's it called? Slime Saga? I think
We're
Slime
now
Saga.
entering the 50th Tom Francis Hazelden hour.
It is. So I play a lot of his games because he releases a lot of games, and they're quite short, even when they're difficult. And they fit really neatly into the gaps between doing other things. Particularly because you can't play them for a long time because they're so fucking hard that like if you get on well with level 1, you'll just be stumped by level 3, and then you need to go away and do something else. And so this one I was actually playing it concurrently with Metal Gear. And every time I died in Metal Gear, every time I screwed something up and an alert was triggered and I was restarting from checkpoint, I would be frustrated, but only for a moment, and I just needed a break before I could go back and redo that bunch of progress. And so I'd switch back to Slime Saga, if you knew that is what it's called. That's sounding less and less right to me the more I say it. Anyway, the Slime Game by Alan Hazelden. And I would suddenly see a thing that hadn't occurred to me before about the puzzle, and I would fix it. And then I would get stuck on the next level and then switch back to Metal Gear Solid, and then die again in Metal Gear Solid and go back. It was like a failure cycle between being a slime and being a commando. Anyway, in Slime whatever,
I think Slime Commando was in Metal Gear 2.
You are just a little square of slime, and there are other squares of slime, and what you have to do is join all the other squares of slime together, and then unstick yourself from them. And if you go into them, it's very tile-based, and you move one tile at a time. If you touch them, then you can't, when you move away, they'll come with you. And the only way to get yourself off them is to scrape yourself off them. So get them next to an obstacle, and you not next to an obstacle, and then go right, so that they can't go right, and then you attach yourself. But if that's a green slime, and you drag it along to another green slime and join it, those two can never be separated, no matter what. So, it's all about, like, trying not to make shapes that are going to block your movement. And it's really strange, actually. Like, it's not really like anything else I've played in terms of what you have to think about. And I did solve a bunch of levels by accident. But then, by the end of it, the last level is really puzzly and just sort of baits you with, like, there's these 4 blocks down here, but if you touch them at all, because they join onto you immediately, now you've made an impossible shape that can't get out of this slot, like a key trying to come out of a hole. And yeah, it was really interesting. A Deathworm from that game jam also looked good. I don't know. No, Bloodworm. Deathworm's already a game. Bloodworm, where it's like Snake, but with gravity, and so you're moving around, actually a lot like Snake Bird if you've played that, but you're moving a snake-like object across a grid-type space, but you're trying to eat guards who can shoot at you, and you have to twist your body in such a way that you reach them before they shoot you. I haven't actually played it, but it looked great from the trailer.
It was by Jonathan Whiting?
Oh, yeah. Who did...
Ending?
Yes, Ending.
And also Red Rogue, I think, is him?
Yes. And did he also do the game where it turns out that the blocks you're pushing around inside the game are the rooms that you're inside as well, and so you can rejoin different rooms to each other by pushing the blocks around?
Maybe.
There's a game like that. I think it's by him.
I can be ridiculously self-promoting. Say the last jam game I played was called Like Clockwork, and it was by me. I made a JRPG taking the piss out of JRPGs for Fuck This Jam over a year ago now, but I'm not above that.
It was really good.
Tom summed it up amazingly.
Did I?
As imagine playing a JRPG with an angry Scotsman following you around to point out all the bullshit and shout at all the twats.
Yes.
And that's on itch.io.
I will link that in show notes.
I don't often play Game Jam games. What I do is I open them. What I do is I open them in a tab, and I leave that tab open for 2.5 months, and then I go, oh fuck, I don't have time for this shit, and then I close down the tab. And that's it.
I listen to other people appreciatively talk about them quite a lot. I used to play loads when I used to do like the top 10 free game stuff, PC Gamer, but I don't have to do that anymore. Not that it's bad to seek out free games, but I just hate writing that spread. So yeah, no, I haven't encountered one for a while. Although I did like there was a run of I think from You Are the Monster. There was a couple of like inverted ski-free games where you were the Yeti chasing a little skier down the map. I played that for a little bit.
I saw a GIF of that. It looked amazing.
That was fun. They were really nicely animated and ski-free. I mean, I don't think I would be particularly interested in it had I didn't. The Sims now. Had I not had a very profound nostalgic attachment to Ski Free as like, one of the only, like, probably the first violent game I ever encountered.
I never played that game. Really? It's so weird seeing it as just sort of part of the canon that everyone knows, because it was a PC, right? And for ages I just assumed it was a game that came free with Macs because I'd never played it. And everyone else
it was Windows 95, I think.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't like a good computer game, but it probably was like probably the first horror game I ever played. Like, the threat of that Yeti was fucking terrifying. Our final question comes from John Roberts.
Oh,
hello. I've gone to great lengths to make sure my voice is heard.
Yeah, this is not to guarantee that your question gets read out on the podcast.
I was wondering if gamers or the market at large will ever accept wholesale reuse of a game's art assets. Like setting a brand new game with brand new mechanics even, or storyline, in, say, GTA 5's world, or Assassin's Creed's.
Metal Gear even.
Or Metal Gear as well. Especially after the light annoyance that...
Fury.
Light Fury.
Yeah.
We saw after Fallout 4 came, or the first trailers came out, and people said, well, it just looks like Fallout 3. And...
It doesn't, but yeah.
Yeah, I always used to think this, like, even before I had any interest in development, I was always thinking of games like, why are they all individually recreating the human? Like, everyone is reinventing the wheel. Why don't they all just use the same human model?
Well, there's a term
and
like,
then the Unity Asset Store came along.
There's the term of reinventing the camera, which specifically refers to the film industry. It's like they don't bother to create everything from scratch with every single new film. And I know, as an artist, I am sick of making varying qualities of traffic cones and oil drums and tires and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There was the thing, this was a fury on the internet a few years back when people discovered that there was a warehouse in a particular map of like Black Ops 2 that had previously been used in a map for Modern Warfare 3 or something like that. And you would never know it. I mean, you would pass through it in 3 seconds and shoot some men inside, and it was in a completely different level, different settings, stuff like that. But just the fact that this asset was the same. So much, though, is, I think, the fact that games are quite expensive. And I wonder if you took Grand Theft Auto 5's world and just made the game cheaper. You know, people are okay with expansion packs. They understand that, you know, that's, they're going to reuse a whole bunch of the same assets, maybe be set in the same place, that kind of thing. Use, you know, same textures between Opposing Force and Half-Life and that kind of thing. But
it would never work as like marketing it as a whole new game. There'd be a revolt at that.
I think there would be. I don't think there should be.
I'm guessing there's a lot of reuse between Bioshock 2 and Bioshock 1 in terms of assets, because they were both set in Rapture. Obviously, they did a lot to... I think that instead of like blood graffiti, there was like white paint graffiti. And it did have some really like visually striking environments that were totally new. But there was... I don't know, do you remember there being upset about that?
I don't think so, because I think a sequel is understood. There's a quantity, people understand that it might be a bit like a previous game in the series most of the time. It's interesting that I am really interested in what is and isn't accepted and what does and doesn't get outrage attached to it, light fury, whatever form it takes. I think with what would happen in this scenario where it became normal to make a new game but set in a LA-like city, and that game just uses GTA's assets, even if they rearrange the buildings or something, right? Like, but it's recognisably bits of, the more generic bits of Los Santos rearranged. I think what would happen is there would be a kind of consumer rights crusade against it, because I think that, like Graham's right, games are too expensive. But what that creates is a weird attempt to create a science out of the concept of value when attached to what's in the game that you buy. And no one's ever settled that. No one has ever settled how long a game should be. Again, not a problem for films. There's a broad consensus on what the range of a film length would be. Never been settled with games. There's not really a sense of what a game needs to include to be valuable, or like what features it should and shouldn't have. And people are always coming along and outlining absolutes when it comes to a game needs this and this and this to be valuable. You see it with the frame rate police. You see it with... and that's all of this stuff is unified by basically a desire to codify what is and isn't value. So you can hold people to more absolute standards when it comes to assessing games from a technical perspective. And I think... my camp, our camp of games criticism tends to reject that, because you say... games are ultimately about the effect. You can't just, it's not a technical measurement. It's always going to be subjective, and everyone has seen the crazy places that the should games reviews be objective debate has taken, the many forms that's taken. But some of them really abusive. And I think if you had that scenario where someone just made a game in a different engine, I could just give you a list of all of the YouTubers who would have a video up, decrying it immediately as a betrayal of consumer rights because it was cheaper that way. You see it in other contexts all the time. You see online game developers, actually every type of developer, being taken to task for doing this thing and not that thing. Because, why didn't they just, is like one of the most commonly rolled out phrases. And you'd see it in this context, it'd be, why didn't they just create their own world? Rather than see the money that's been saved, which is actually probably fair in that case because it wouldn't necessarily be reflected in the price of the box, but maybe rather than see that the money's been reinvested into something else, maybe more important. There's a lot of, I guess, assumptions made about the development process and like what you can expect from a developer in return for your money, and it tends to be, when this kind of outrage kicks off, the thing you can expect from the developer is exactly what you wanted personally that they had no way to tell and yesterday. And so there's really no way to win. I think it would just create a scenario where I don't think it'll happen because I think they suspect the outrage would be that much. Ubisoft's probably the company that's most likely to do it at some point, of every company. If they haven't already, like they go set a Far Cry game and Ghost Recon Wildlands map. But they won't, I think, because it's probably a step too far for the current audience, even if it might be accepted in the future.
Yeah, I can't see a lot happening before games collide with photorealism. And at that point, the graphics race is just sort of inconsequential.
There was that, I think it was Kickstarted or Indiegogo, but former Ubisoft developers who wanted to kind of 3D scan planet Earth by sticking cameras on drones and flying them above places to take photography at such a high resolution that they could then turn that into height maps with textures and stuff like that. And I think they did meet their funding target, although it seemed, I think they asked for like 50 grand or something like that to do this. And this was, they were going to start with the period, the space around the city that they were in, which I think was like Montreal or something like that, because they were in Canada. But I haven't heard anything more about that since. But
they might have had a problem with that European law about panorama photography and not being able to reproduce things without permission.
Yeah.
Kill that project.
There's lots of things that I think are likely to kill that project. But I wonder how much as well is that video games are already kind of repeatable experiences. It's a tight loop of mechanics that takes 15 minutes, but you just do it 300 times over the running time of the game, and so that creates a sense that quality video games is a thing that you buy by the pound, which you don't get in any other medium. Like, it's not like, there's a fucking lot of words in this article, yeah! It's like, no, it's the complete opposite of the writing advice you give any new writer. And there's a
lot of actors I haven't seen in this movie.
It doesn't really work that way.
No one's sitting watching The Hobbit 2 thinking, yes, get 100 extra minutes for my, my $8 that I paid for this thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in video games, this game has an endless mode. Sweet! That means it's infinite.
It's funny, I was like, it sounds like a bad thing about games that we have to sort of argue over length and price all the time, because there is a constant debate going on about it. But actually, as you were saying that, Chris, about like films having accepted length and stuff, I started to realise like, it's quite nice really that games can just be, you can make a game that is very short and charge a low price for it, or you can make up your own idea of what the value is, and yes, you'll get a bunch of controversy about it if you screw up. But we're always finding new little sort of sizes and scales and ways for games to be. You can, even the Endless Runner is a thing that's, has no length, but has, a new type of value. And the price we pay is just a bunch of people yelling about it.
I think the frustration comes from me, and I don't really mean to pick on specific people, like specific YouTubers or whatever. It's not that. It's just there's a frustration with when that stuff becomes, when it's not like they fucked up and they got a response for it. It's when like Monument Valley put out a paid expansion for their paid for game and get the shit kicked out of them for daring to create new stuff, like, because it should have been free because you've already paid once. And that sort of, I don't know, the entitlement word that's spanned around a lot, that is frustrating. And there is a sense that I guess when you spend that money, you are entitled to an entirely new grounds up, camera has been reinvented experience with every new game you buy, which I would agree is a symptom of games being too expensive. But we do live in a world where games can refactor prices. The vast majority of games actually do. You're talking about only pretty much mainstream boxed console releases that don't have some sort of modular pricing thing.
Yeah, and Monument Valley wasn't too expensive.
It was like £1. And yeah, so, and then that ties into a system where, like, you can either challenge that view or you can pander to it. And that's, I suppose, where the frustration comes from. Like, I think this would not be necessarily, this idea of reusing game wars wouldn't be killed by players going, we don't know why this is. Because you can probably solve, why this is happening? Because you can probably solve that problem with price point. It would still cause a media response that I think would discourage developers, because I think it's such low-hanging fruit for someone who wants to kind of go, is this affecting your consumer rights to a different grey building? Yeah, it's probably not worth it for anybody.
I think it's probably all Alex Wilshire's fault. After he wrote that RPS article demanding demanding graphics to improve every single time.
That's not what he said. As the commissioner and editor of that article, that's not what it said. I like the response to that article was brilliant, because it was 50% people saying, why does this article even exist? There's no controversy about this. Everyone likes photorealism already. What are you talking about? And the other 50% were people saying, fuck photorealism. This is everything that's wrong with the games industry. And it's those comments side by side, as if those people weren't reading each other's comments. Hundreds of them.
No one reads the article before they comment, or any other comments.
One of my favourite YouTube comments ever was, I can't remember what person A said, but person A commented with a certain opinion, and person B quoted that opinion in full in quote marks, and then said, afterwards, said no one ever. The guy above the thing you're replying to, but you know they said it because you're replying to it. If they hadn't said it, you wouldn't need to.
Yeah. Let's not, basically, do that, because it's not worth reading the hot takes afterwards. Like, I think that's probably what I'm really getting at. I just don't want to live in the world where that happens, because I don't want to deal with the fucking op-eds. Yeah, I don't want them to. I wouldn't have to read them. I appreciate that, but I just don't know that they existed would annoy me.
I've removed the Twitter app from my phone, and I'm now 10% happier in life.
Shit.
It's a good step. And that's all.
You go.
I didn't know I couldn't remember if the question guy said that bit or not.
Mer.
That is all the questions we have time for.
But thank you for sending them.
You're welcome, John. Sorry, I've confused.
Okay, John.
I'm going.
You can send me more questions for a future episode if you want, John. By emailing us to questions@crateandcrowbar.com, by tweeting us at crateandcrowbar, by leaving them on our forum at crateandcrowbar.com/forum, or by turning out to be a guest on the podcast. You can also back us on Patreon, which nets you nothing but a warm feeling in your belly for helping us make this possible.
I can highly recommend it. Having just backed the Patreon, I got invited onto the podcast. If you want to be on the Crate and Crowbar podcast,
Wait, don't shit.
That is not guaranteed, or indeed likely. We didn't know he backed us.
You can do that anyway by going to patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar.
And maybe one day it will lead to better better sound quality, but not today.
I don't actually believe we've had anything through yet, have we?
We have now, yes.
Okay.
So, and we have, I think, picked out what we're going to get.
Yeah,
so,
the plans are in motion.
Yeah. So soon.
Soon.
So
it will sound slightly different, maybe.
Yes, hopefully. Or you can tweet us on individually. I am at Gonnas, Gonnas.
I'm at C Thurston, that's CTHURSTEN.
I'm at Pentadact, PENTADACT.
and I'm John Roberts. No, I've done it wrong. John R. JOHN_ARR.
That's nice, everybody.